It's a pleasure to be here. I feel very lucky to have been able to assemble this group of very high-profile expert panelists. I kind of think I'm punching above my weight here. And also, I feel lucky to have assembled you guys as an audience because it's going to be a fun, intimate conversation since we're the what's holding you between the beer and conference reception. So, but like in engineering, there's this comment of there's no free lunch. That means I have to fight against my normal tendency to talk way too long during a presentation. So hopefully the panelists will do the same. So very quickly, just kind of going down the line, if you would introduce yourself, your organization, and maybe your organization's mission in 1 or 2 sentences. So.
Thank you, Phil, and thanks to everyone for joining us. I'm Celia Merzbacher. I'm the Executive Director of the Quantum Economic Development Consortium, or QED-C, which is an industry-driven consortium of stakeholders. It now represents 250 plus members, predominantly companies, and most of those are small to medium-sized companies and startups. We are international, so we have members from now about 20 countries around the world. And our mission is to enable and grow the quantum industry.
I am Roger McKinlay, the Challenge Director at UK Research and Innovation, Challenge Director for Quantum Technologies. UKRI is an arm's-length government body in the UK, made up of research councils and an organisation called Innovate UK, and we fund universities to do research, and we also fund companies to carry out projects and to innovate. And for the past 5 years now, as part of a bigger machine, which is the UK's national programme, we've been running programmes where we fund collaborations, particularly with a company leading, and also we do early procurement, sometimes for government as the customer, the end user in the future. And so we're helping companies not only with grants, but also with revenue.
Yes, hello. My name is Mikko Nurminen. I'm the Chief Sales Officer at Bluefors. Our mission is to support both the scientists and the industries with our cryo solution and dilution fridges to take the quantum industry forward.
Hello, my name is Outi, Keski-Äijö. I come from Business Finland. Business Finland is a governmental organization that is innovation funder. It also promotes innovation ecosystems. It promotes commercialization and internationalization, and also promotes investments to Finland. We do fund applied research. So also universities and technical institutes, we fund the companies, and we can fund also the public sector with the innovative public the procurement.
Thank you. Barbara Goldstein with the National Institute of Standards and Technology. We're part of the Department of Commerce, and we're the nation's National Metrology Institute. I always say that metrology institutes were really among the first movers and shakers in quantum because we needed it first, right? So we took advantage of quantum first just to make better measurements, and that gave us a very robust, early, rigorous research portfolio in quantum, which is now about a $50 million program at NIST. And if you've heard anything about NIST and quantum, it's probably the PQC competition that we ran. So, but our program extends into all aspects of quantum computing, sensing, networking, et cetera. And thank you. Pleased to be here.
Maybe I should be in the middle. So, like I said, it's a very diverse panel. We have 2 industry representatives up here, 2 government representatives, a national lab representative, and a stakeholder consortium representative. So thinking about international partnerships, international lessons learned is certainly beyond me and my day job. But looking at the ecosystem, it's 2025 is the International Year of Quantum. We're at the Quantum World Congress, not Quantum National Congress. There were some recent reports that came out of the Quantum Coordination Office and reasons for international partnerships. And it's near and dear to my heart because Vexlum is this 1 + 1 = 5 story where without these complementary ecosystems of semiconductor and optoelectronics in Finland and ion trapping and laser expertise in Boulder, this unique technology that we bring to the quantum market space really wouldn't exist. So my question is, this is a great example of one of the highlights, one of the success stories in international partnerships, but from each of your lenses, what do you see as additional examples or success stories that you can share? And I have preambles for each of you, but since we have one mic, feel free to pontificate a little bit.
So I think that, QED-C is a trusted community, and so it naturally brings together and allows elbows to be rubbed among different parts of the sort of stakeholder groups that are critical to the technology, making it out of the lab and into the marketplace. And so we're about connecting people, and there are, my answer to this was see the headlines. We've heard at this meeting announcements about collaborations between very large tech companies like Microsoft and quantum companies. I'm almost surprised at the news that I see in my newsfeed on a daily basis. And between last year and this year, there's been incredible progress. And companies don't look at borders the same way that governments do. Companies are allowed to, do trade, work across boundaries, as long as it's not illegal and they're not breaking any laws. And so that's really the motivation. They're trying to grow their business. Even the smallest companies are going global very quickly. And so that sort of is the characteristic that I see. And partly maybe due to the pandemic, I see companies having operations and employees distributed worldwide. And that's partly because they're finding the talent wherever it is. And people can work long distance. They don't have to move to the headquarters location. And so there's just a natural global characteristic to this industry as it grows, which I think is a little bit different maybe from the way technologies have emerged in the past, despite the fact that there are some daunting hardware challenges where people do have to come together to work. Nevertheless, I think there's a global characteristic, and it also reflects the fact that innovation in quantum is happening all around the world, not just here in the US or in any one country. I don't know.
Yeah, so Mikko, Bluefors recently announced the acquisition of Cryomech, which is an international acquisition, and you've had a New York office for a long time. You obviously have good reasons to be working internationally, but what success stories can you share with us?
Yeah, maybe opening up a bit the kind of a picture from a commercial company perspective that quantum, of course, is a global market, and I think therefore we need to be more or less everywhere and collaborate actually with more or less everyone as well in a partnership manner. And I think one of the challenges on that side truly is that we are having plenty of national kind of approaches. We're working closely with Outi, we are actually working closely with the UK embassy in Finland and so forth, so that I think there are plenty of those. I have to say that QACD is actually one of the kind of a nice exceptions targeting to be a more global approach, so that there is one consortium at least on the global level in addition to the local levels. On the quantum side, I think there are so many different interest parties that commercial companies are having a bit of a challenge to kind of really choose that where we put our resources on. There are so many parties that would be good to collaborate with that we just can't have enough resources to put all the efforts that they would like to have there. Thinking then truly, I think from the perspective that you, Philip, mentioned that the Cryomech acquisition that I think Bluefors has been using for its entire history, sort of for the past 16 years already, the Cryomech solutions, Cryomech pulse tubes with the dilution fridges there. And it became kind of a really more to be like a one company type of situation already. Cryomec was by far the biggest supplier to the Bluefors side, and I think we became the biggest customer of Cryomec at the time. So then the sort of most evident happened after that, hey, we joined the forces, and I think now we have even better capabilities to develop the technology forward. And I think that type of examples, of course, I think merging the companies, that's a kind of extreme example, but as close as possible, technological collaboration is always more than welcome on the commercial side as well.
Thank you. So, Roger, you heard from Celia and Mikko that companies really, borders don't exist for them. They don't see borders. But the UK, you were one of the first movers in creating a national quantum initiative for your country. Being one of the early adopters of this strategy and creating a national strategy, what lessons do you have now that you're into the second phase or maybe even almost in the third phase of your national strategy?
It's actually quite a complicated issue, I think. So first of all, my background is industry, so I apologize because you asked me to speak as a government person, and I'll instantly speak in the wrong voice. But to be honest, companies will just know they're going to have to work with other companies, be they suppliers, customers, and they'll go wherever they have to do that. When we talk about collaboration, I think we're talking about something a bit beyond that, because in my mind, collaboration means you're going to have to do something which might be rather painful, but you think there's going to be a really good reason for doing it. In other words, you want to overcome some obstacles. And that's true of companies. I mean, they will go out and seek new suppliers and find a collaborator. And setting something up new is also always painful and expensive, but you think there's a bigger prize. Now, when governments talk about collaboration, the trouble with governments, they seem to think that they control everything, but if it wasn't for governments, the sun wouldn't come up in the morning or whatever. But when the governments talk about collaboration, quite often they actually mean we've got something which we think is of value to trade. So this has been called S&T diplomacy, science and technology diplomacy. And so when a company like the UK makes an early start on a quantum program, and we say we would like to work with others, it might be for non-quantum reasons, because having a lead in a technology and having skills and having knowledge and knowing how to exploit something is a tradable quantity. So several countries at the moment we're beginning to see this are wanting to collaborate on quantum because they're really wanting to trade it for something else. And it is a political story, okay? And it has always been thus, I think, but because of the sheer potential of quantum technologies, I think we're seeing now that it is recognized that they're quite an important pawn in a trading game. And that's why we're beginning to hear talk of, for example, export controls and the likes, because that is becoming much more of an interest. We're all after the same thing, actually. We heard it several times in the past few days. There are two aspects to this. One is security, because quantum technologies play in that game, and the other is prosperity, benefits to our citizens and benefits to the economies.
Right, thank you. So, Outi, kind of the same question. There was a recent public policy in Europe report that characterized Finland as a strong innovation and technology base in quantum technologies. So, along those lines, do you have any lessons learned that you can share on what role government or close government organizations should play in quantum and success stories from those types of policies?
Yes, I see it that it should be more the enabler. The government should be able and kind of like maybe arranging some agreements and contracts and most with other countries, so that companies can use those and also the researchers can use those. But and we of course have certain structures like in EU that we have the like Horizon Europe and also Eureka that is also of course covering some other countries as well that are there already in place. So they have been very beneficial also in quantum side. But then I think that it's very important to companies also to look at what are the players and key players and like the Bluefors has been dealing with developing together with IPM, and today we heard that also Algorithmic is one of the companies that are very closely working with IPM to develop their services in the future. So there is always kind of like question that what level you work and what is your purpose. But what I see that there is a government is enabler, not the saying that who you should be working together and so on.
And then lastly, Barbara, I think NIST is very near and dear to my heart, and I think I'm saddened every time people overlook the long history that they were doing quantum before it was cool. And certainly you've been doing quantum.
Making a cool Bluefors, yeah. Yeah, right. Hey, there was never a before I was cool. Sorry.
It was very much a pun intended sort of statement. And you've been doing quantum also for quite a long time with the NIST on the Chip program, and also internationally through all the standards work you've been doing. So in some sense, you've seen the result of many of these international efforts.
Yep.
What can you share from your perspective working on standards and also the broader work that NIST does internationally?
Yeah, thank you. So just to focus on standards for a minute, I feel really fortunate in my job because I work at a metrology institute and I work in standards. These are both intrinsically international collaborative efforts. So I feel like I get to swim in a sea of collaboration, which not everybody gets to do. So that's very cool. So standards is kind of interesting because there's kind of this push-pull relationship, right? Like there's a tendency for countries to want to look dominant in standards so that they look dominant in the technology in the field. And that sort of puts a pressure towards standardizing too soon and sort of locking things in or, cementing technical approaches before their time. And so we have to sort of counter that. So I always say the best standards are science-based but industry-driven. So have to have a clear business case and business advantage. If you produce a standard, it's got to make a difference. But also you want to make sure that it's informed by good science, which can sometimes get overlooked because of the politics that Roger was talking about. So one of the efforts I wanted to highlight in this panel was this new effort that we're trying to get off the ground called NMIQ, which is a collaboration among the world's metrology institutes to accelerate the development and adoption of quantum technology by accelerating the development of science-based standards, but not before their time, but rather to do that good, sound pre-standardization work that metrology institutes are really expert at, so that we produce good measurement practices that industry can use right away. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks. So along that same vein, thinking about quantum from the broad perspective that you all mentioned, when I look at the industry, quantum is a very different ecosystem place than even other emerging technologies like in bio or in AI or other areas, and has unique challenges and unique features. And so the question is, hopefully we've convinced the audience that now collaboration is important, but everyone talks about it, but it's still being talked about even today. So that means that challenges exist to doing these things. So what challenges do you encounter from your various organizations, and how are you overcoming them, or how do you intend, what do you need to overcome them? Maybe start with Celia and go down the line.
So I would push back a little bit on the premise. I'm not sure. There are areas where quantum is not really different from other emerging technologies, and we have sort of regimes and resources and so on to help advance the field. It is, in the whole chain of biotech, AI, now quantum, and who knows what's next. It is where it is in the pipeline, and the world looks the way it looks right now. So it's sort of a unique combination in a way of geopolitics, technology, emerging, and so on. I think one of the things that is somewhat unique to quantum is it's hard for people to get their head around. out in the world, right? I mean, we're here talking to ourselves, preaching to the choir or whatever. I really challenge everyone in our community to practice and get better at talking about quantum. I like to point out to non-specialists that you think quantum is some exotic thing that you really don't have to worry about, whereas it's really kind of all around you. If you get down to the atomic scale, kind of everything in our world is quantum at that level. And so being able to control things at these tiny scales, being able to predict their behavior, all this opens up just a world of possibilities. And so even though your sort of daily consumer doesn't think about how important materials are, how computing, they just use it. And that's great. We'll eventually have quantum-enabled technology that people just use. But I think for us, it's really important to be communicating with the public and with others so that they get past some of the misconceptions. I would say that's a big chore for us all.
So communication is one of the big challenges. How about you, Ryan?
I agree with Celia, but I always do. But I mean,
As do I. In case anyone's wondering, I always do too.
the people who want quantum to be unique are people who want it to be paid for and say, well, it's unique. It's not the same as all the other things which have failed. It's unique. It's going to succeed. I think it's dangerous to say it's new. I think it does land in the class of technologies, though what really makes a difference is, boy, is it expensive. And is it going to take a while? So it's long term. And we've come on a long way because it wasn't long ago where the various country programs were saying, we're going to have the world's first quantum computer. And the next one say, well, no, we're going to have a world's first quantum computer, but if it's the second, it's going to be better than yours because it's going to be bigger. And it was all these qualifying statements. And we now actually say, this is the domain of global companies and global capital and collaboration and letting industries, this is my view certainly, do what it has to do. But because it's long-term and because of its capabilities and so on, it is something which it is quite clear that governments have seen as a priority for investing in as well. But the real distinguishing feature is it's really hard and it's going to be really expensive. And the great thing is at the moment, the consensus, and that's what it is that it's worth it because of the enormous potential.
Yeah, thank you. I think very much agree with everything what was being said. And looking at it from the company Bluefors perspective a bit, that I think one of the things that is special in quantum that it's not one thing, it's many things. Just thinking about the qubit modalities, I think there are several modalities, and while our mission and strategy is to support both the research side of the quantum as well as then commercializing and industrializing it, I think we need to have capabilities to develop very different solutions for different qubit modalities on the research side versus then scaling them up moving forward. So I think that's clearly, I would say in one way specific, not trying to claim that, hey, yeah, in the medical industry, certainly there are similar type of cases, but I think quantum is quite unique from that perspective. And nobody knows yet that which one will be the winning technology, or will there be actually several winners just for different application areas. I think that's one option as well. So certainly. And I think this speed of the cycles, that when we look on this one, that hey, we are supporting really both the research and then the scaling the technology up, that we need to be capable of making the new solutions for the researchers so that they can reach the next milestone in their research programs and then scale it up immediately with the commercial companies who are driving these qubit counts to move forward to get the next bigger and most beautiful quantum computer out there. So I think those are the sort of challenges, and we need to keep running really, really fast-paced R&D programs on our side as well to keep up the pace with the development.
Yes, I think it actually the combination of many things why it's so kind of like different, and it's the one thing is the like horizontality of the technology and versatility of that, so that you can use it so many purposes and so many modalities that you can use it. Then again, this kind of like interest of the governments of this technology in so early phases, that because of the geopolitics especially. So all these kind of like, and of course also the cost side. So all those make it so kind of like special in that case that there is a kind of like so many different aspects in that they are not exactly the similar that are what kind of like any other businesses. Like you can think about like a space, it's also expensive, but it's still kind of like long history, and there's a certain kind of the different type of the development cycles and so on. But here we are very early still in every sense.
So I'll be quick. I know we're running out of time here, but I just wanted to point out market gaps. If I said there was one challenge that, we ran a QED-C workshop on photonic integrated circuits for quantum about 1.5 years ago, and one of the key outcomes of that workshop really was that there are a few picks that are going to be super expensive to make. There's never going to be a market for them because the world's only going to need a dozen of them, maybe 2 dozen of them. So nobody's going to make a business out of that. So, but boy, if they existed, they'd be revolutionary. And so somehow we need to make sure that investments go in the right places.
Okay, so communication, cost, and difficulty, various modalities, the early market, and then the non-unification of the market are the challenges. And I think that the story is that international collaborations, as you mentioned, can be used to tackle, to accelerate solutions of these problems. I'll say one last thing since I have the microphone, using the moderator's prerogative. I 100% agree with you, Celia, and we don't call it many-body quantum atomic interactions, we call it chemistry. And we don't call it tunneling of electrons through variable barriers, we call it computing and semiconductor physics, or semiconductor science. But anyway, I do not want to keep anyone between them and their cocktails any longer, so if we would thank our panel, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you very much, and now we can all go to the exhibit hall and enjoy the closing ceremony. Thank you very much for joining us.